Hey everybody, afternoon. It's great to see you. I am joining a guest and a friend of mine, Beckett Johnson, with me today to talk about love and mindfulness, and I'm looking forward to having Beckett join us. We can do this. Super. That's
Hey JJ,
easier than I thought.
a lot easier than we thought, right?
So super awesome. Thanks for joining. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today about some of the conversation we had this week. Beckett and I have been friends for decades now, and we were talking about life, love, and probably everything in between. So I'm looking forward to kicking this off.
I know, I'm excited about this. I think it's a lot of information that people need that will actually help them, especially now being quarantined and looking for more useful things to watch and learn.
Yeah, that's so true. So yesterday we were talking about love, and the conversation just sort of spun out of control into self-love, which I think is such an interesting topic. So I was asking you, how do you talk about self-love? How do you love yourself? That's such a popular tagline, and everyone's like, love yourself. But like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because, you hear it a lot. Let's love ourselves. Let's love ourselves. But people really don't know how to do that. And I think self-love comes from, starting with the basics of what is self-love for me and how do I love myself? What are the things I do? So, one simple thing that I do with clients and stuff is have them not talk negatively about themselves and just monitor that on a daily basis or just for an hour. See how often you say something negative about yourself in that hour. And it kind of brings awareness to the fact that, wow, I really don't treat myself very well. And if I don't treat myself very well, then how can I expect others to treat me well?
Yeah, that's something I never realized I did. I actually had to write, when I wrote my first book, I monitored the chatter I had in my head and how I communicated with people. And at the time, I would have thought I was super positive. But when I forced myself to log the conversation, whether it was in my head or I shared it, I was shocked of how,
Mhm.
honestly, what a jerk I was. Yeah, I just wasn't very nice to myself, and the expectations to others was so high.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, right? We look to other people to fill that hole. And then we're wondering why they're not filling it from our partners, from our friends, from our coworkers, why is this person not doing this for me? Why are they not doing that for me? And I always will reference back and even check myself. Am I doing that for me? Because if I'm not doing that for me, I can't expect somebody else to be doing that for me. And that's a
Yeah,
big thing.
yeah. So how do you start that? So if you find yourself that you're spinning, you have this internal chatter where you're always beating yourself up, or you really can't get started because you're second guessing yourself, how do you go about getting around that chatter?
I think the number one thing is realizing you're not going to turn that chatter off. It's going to happen. We're innately part of that. It's taught to us in our society, through marketing and commercials that you're not good enough, you're not this, and always put yourself down. So we're already raised to believe we're not good enough. So it's like, okay, the first thing is being aware of it. Once you're aware of it, now what do I do with it? Okay, well, now that I'm aware of it, and that's the biggest thing is being aware, and that's where mindfulness comes in. Paying attention to when you're saying things like that to yourself and going, okay, and then sitting back and sitting with that statement. Like if I look at myself and go, you know what, you're stupid and you're an idiot. Okay, we all think that sometimes. Do I really believe that? Is that really who I am, or where is that coming from? Is that something I was told as a kid? Is it something I was told from someone else that I've accepted as a truth for myself? And then why am I continuing to believe that truth?
Yeah, I think it's hard because so many people, I know that I had to go to mindfulness classes before I really understood how to pay attention to what I was saying to myself.
Right.
I don't think it's an easy thing to do because I think
No.
many of us are so busy delivering on so many to-dos and commitments that we don't really spend a lot of time self-assessing how we're talking to ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because every client I have always tells me this it's not easy. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. No, it's not easy. Nobody ever told us life would be easy. That's why it's a practice. That's why it's starting at the simple basics and going, okay, how do I start this? And so like mindfulness, like we talked about earlier, I don't even like the name because it means that your mind is full. And yes, your mind is full, but that's not what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is working with that and observing it, not attaching to what your mind is saying. So that's where, I take something you do every day. I don't care what it is. A shower, brush your teeth, wash the dishes, drive in the car, take a walk with your dog. Whatever it is that you like, and just be mindful of that action in that moment and see what comes up.
What does that mean? Like, if I'm listening to you, and I know just because I've been doing this for a year, but be mindful in that moment. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean?
You want to be present. So mindful in that moment means I'm going to be present. No phone, no, oh my God, I have this to-do list and when I get home, I need to call this person and do that. We just stop and breathe for a moment and say, I'm just going to be here right now. So for instance, let's take walking the dog. Where are you? What is the environment you're in? How is the dog on the leash feeling? How are you feeling? How is this walk feeling to you? How is your environment look? Is there trees? Are there flowers? Do you hear the birds? It's just anchoring into that one moment and realizing right now, that's mindfulness. Because what are you doing? You're observing. You're observing everything and you're taking everything in that moment. So I'm being mindful. You're not letting your mind, and your mind will come in and go, okay, this is great that you're looking at the trees and the birds and all that, but hey, we got to get home and cook supper for the kids, or you got to go home and that's where you go, okay, I hear you. And you just kind of let it go and come back to this.
Yeah, I think it is hard because when I do try and I practice mindfulness every single day, but I do find myself either focusing on what I've already done or planning for what is next. And I think you have to say, you've got to almost have like a practice where you know how to let go of the thoughts, because the thoughts are there all the time. It's bringing yourself back to space in your head without occupying it with your to-do list or how you feel about something.
Absolutely. And that's where different tools come in to help you. Somebody's not going to say, hey, I want to learn about mindfulness and all of a sudden be great at it right now. Yeah. It's a practice. It's starting at the basics and learning. And that's where meditation helps. That's where, doing other things, like even there's mindful coloring, where you can find anything that takes your focus into one particular thing is being mindful. And people don't realize that.
Yeah. And what I've learned is it's a muscle. You have to keep practicing. And what it's done for me is it allows me to have joy in the moment that I'm in. Because so many times, whether I was going for cocktails with my friends or I had moments with the kids, if I was in my mind thinking about what had already happened, what I did right and wrong, and what I need to do next, I wasn't in the moment that I was in. And so I lost an opportunity to truly connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've lost that with our phones. How many times, I can't tell you how many times I will be particularly mindful of turning my phone off or putting it down, especially if I'm doing a walk or I'm getting outside or I'm engaging with a friend, because we're so used to picking the phone up. And when you walk around, you'll see people like this. Even at restaurants, if you just stop and look at how many people are not present at the moment. And the thing is, you're missing that connection. You're missing the connection of where you are right then. And that's so important because that's what those connections fill you up.
Yeah, and I've even been trying to teach my kids, like, don't eat and watch TV. Like, eat or watch TV. Like, be in the moment of eating or be in the moment of watching TV. Not that TV is that great for mindfulness. It's not. But I'm just saying, you just can't be plowing food in and watching where you're not mindful of even how that feels or what it tastes like.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a huge practice. It's something we've done at my brain injury retreats. We have 2 breakfasts where we eat silent breakfast. We don't have TVs there, but there's no talking to each other. There's no nothing. You just get your food and you sit. Wherever you want is fine, but you're just going to be quiet and you're going to concentrate on eating and just being present in that moment. You'll be surprised. A lot of people, and then we'll talk about, what did people realize? A lot of people actually end up eating less because you don't realize how much you eat when you're not being mindful of your body telling you, I'm full.
Right.
Because we're distracted.
So when you bring that back to self-love, because we were talking about self-love, that's kind of off this whole discussion, is that I find so many people, including myself, have been caught up in external metrics that define whether or not we like ourselves, right?
Right.
So whether it's a title, a salary, a relationship, how, our friend group, whatever it is, there's always this external searching, and then it determines whether or not I like myself enough to love myself. And I feel like, so how does this all fit together in your mind?
Well, I think, the essence of self-love is the idea that you can't give that which you cannot give to yourself. Mm-hmm. So if I can't give myself self-love, how do I give it to others? I don't even know how to love myself. So I can't expect to know, okay, I don't know how to love myself, but I know how to love you. No, you don't. You don't. And people think they do. So, they think, oh, and that's why then our perception is that my partner should know what I need. Well, half the time you don't know what you need. So it's really taking time to spend with yourself and realizing like what is self-love. And it's something I had to do, especially after my brain injury, because I was changed. So what is self-love to me right now? Maybe self-love is going to take a nap. Maybe self-love is I need to be outside sitting under a tree. Maybe self-love is I need to go see my good friend and have a drink or just have a good conversation. Or maybe I need a hot bath or a cup of tea. I mean, it could be any plethora of things. Some people love to run. Exercise for them is self-love, which of course we all should be exercising to a degree, but it's whatever fills you back up and makes you whole. Because I always say you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you're feeling empty and drained, you know what I mean, you can't give love. And so self-love is really loving yourself wholly, and whatever that looks like. And most people don't know what that is. So it's spending time with yourself, maybe even journaling. And what do I really like? I mean, if you ask people sometimes, what do you really like? What really fills you up with self-love? They'll go, I don't know. Like I do this exercise called more or less with some of my clients. What do you want more of in your life? What do you want less? And the more usually is more self-love. And those are things that bring them self-love, but they just don't realize it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good topic right now because many of us are busy, but some of us have gaps of time we haven't had before. And I think making sure that we're not filling those times with crap. I mean, that's the way to say it, right? Making sure that you're carving out the time that you want right now to fill your bucket. And that could be sitting in the yard, that could be building a fire, that could be reading a book, listening to a book, cooking, whatever it is for you, like you said. But making sure that you're making that time, because if you can't make that time right now when you're
In quarantine,
to stay in one place, I'm not sure you're ever going to be able to make that time.
well, and there's that whole idea that we don't have the time.
Yeah.
But what's funny is we make time for things that make us feel good. Even things, yes, we have to go to work and we have to take, but in the essence, as human beings, we go by feelings. So when it makes us feel good, we go towards that. When it doesn't, we kind of procrastinate. But, there's some moms I even work with and they're like, how often are you really present with just your children?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and really watch them. You know what I mean? Watch them play. Watch how they laugh. Watch how they roll around or how they look at a blade of grass. Like, how present are you in seeing that?
Yeah.
And that is a self-loving moment because you're allowing yourself to engage and, like you said earlier, connect with another soul.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that. We don't realize that that's self-love. We think it's external. It's got to come from someone else. And it's like, no, when you give yourself that time to enjoy the things you love and you make it a priority, that's self-love.
Yeah, it sure is. And I feel like this time more than ever, I'm really talking to a lot of folks about keeping their frequency high, having a lot of positive energy. And I only think you can do that if you're doing things you enjoy doing.
Oh, absolutely. But, the other part of that too, and the other side that people don't realize is, okay, say I'm sad, right? And I want to keep my frequency high. Well, I'm going to go do something that makes me forget I'm sad. But that really does the opposite. It actually levels up your sadness frequency because you're not dealing with it. So maybe self-love for you in that moment is eating a pint of ice cream and watching Netflix and crying your eyes out. That's okay. If that's what you need and that's self-love, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's something I deal with a lot of people that I don't like.
So you're saying if you're having an emotion, instead of masking it and jumping into something else to pretend you don't have it, like just jump into the emotion. And if that requires a sad movie for you to get those tears out, or a sad book, or having a tough conversation, like get into the emotion you're struggling with.
Yeah. And the thing is, again, we want to mindfulness, observe it and not attach to it. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of sitting there going, okay, I feel sad. Because when we honor that, the emotion can process through and it'll go away. It'll actually go away faster than if we just ignore it and try to go, oh, I'm going to say this positive emotion, or I'm going to go say this I am, and I don't really feel it. You can't get to that.
That's probably why a lot of people say, too, a lot of people that do mindfulness and other practices, they talk about journaling. They journal to get that emotion out of your body and really understand what are all the prickly sides of it. And the only way you can do it is if you sit within it.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. But and journaling's great. It's something I've done. And there's some people who, okay, I don't like journaling. Okay, well, what do you like? You know,
Right.
is going out in the park and maybe yelling, like not like a crazy person, but just like letting it loose, or is it, you know, going to do a brisk walk going to help you release that emotion? I mean, there's different ways that we can release emotions. There isn't one right or wrong way, but it's how do you do that and how does it release for you? Because we're not taught how to deal with those emotions.
We're not taught how to do with it, and a lot of time we mask it or cover it up with so much activity in our lives that we don't
Yeah.
deal with it. And I think making time to sort of dive into how you're feeling and why you feel that way, so that you can, you know, I think the ultimate goal is to remove the dark energy and fill that with light. But you can only remove the dark energy if you understand why you have the energy, where it came from, and what it's doing to you.
Exactly. And that's just it. Because we're always going to have that shadow side. We're always going to have dark energy. You can't have the light without the dark, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how do we embrace those? And that's what people think, oh, well, you know, I'm in a bad mood and I want to eat this ice cream. That's not self love. If that makes you feel better and that's helping you, that is self love. Nobody knows you better than you.
Yeah. So I just love this conversation. I could talk about this all day because I think that, you know, people say, oh, love yourself, self love, be empowered by yourself. But I think very few people give strategies on how to dive into activities that really cultivate that type of energy. And in the way society is, like you mentioned earlier, they want us to externally buy this clothing, drink this
Yeah.
drink, you know, go to this travel trip, or, you know, and it's like, and then you get home and you have that feeling again.
Right. Well, right. Then you're always searching, right? Oh, I felt great when I did that. So now I want more of that. And
Yeah.
that's the hook. That's you need this to have that. But the reality is you already have that within you.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of sitting with yourself and realizing that and going, okay, what do I need that's going to nourish my soul and allowing me to do that?
Yeah, this is so helpful. Thank you so much, Beckett. And before we jump off, I love your business, Resilience Alchemist. And
Right.
yeah, before we jump off, can you tell us a little bit about the name?
Yeah, it came up for me in realizing alchemy, if you learn way back then, was alchemists who believed they could take lead and turn it into gold, which a lot of people would say that's impossible. So nowadays, it's more about taking a situation where you feel you can't turn, you can't get through it, and really finding new ways to alchemize it and turn it into what it is that you want. For instance, for me, it started because I had the brain injury. So how do I now thrive with a brain injury? Everybody else would say, "Oh, you're screwed. It's the death sentence almost." And my thing was, "No, it's not. There's just new ways, and there's always ways. You just have to find the opportunities." So that's where I came up with the name, was finding your inner resilience to alchemize whatever situation you have in your life and turn it into something that you really want that can bring you forward in a positive way.
I love that. I love that because everyone that I listen to and follow, they always say like your most prickly situation in life is often your biggest lesson, and if you can move
Absolutely.
that, you create an oasis of energy to get to the other side of whatever's important to you. And so that's awesome.
Yeah, that's where you grow. It's the seeds that, when you're planted in the dark, you're just going to bloom new possibilities.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, and your friendship.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Beckett.
Thanks, guys.